Bill Self might be learning how to speak maple syrup, and Tim Hortons, they could be going to Canada to get their next pickup, a electric scoring guard in Nginyu Ngala.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we're going to be talking Inginyu Ngala. He is a Canadian guard or playing in Canada at the university level who seems like Kansas might have some interest in, according to Mike Vernon. And so where does this go for KU? How exactly would he fit into KU? Potential fit, we'll get to all that and some of the latest news around Kansas with the KU football field and KU women's basketball schedule out, KU baseball, some interesting news, both additions and subtractions. And we'll get to all that on today's episode of the show, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. And with Monarch, you can take control of your finances. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. Okay, so who is this guard from Canada? It is Inginyu Ngala. He is a 5'10" guard from Montreal, Quebec. So that is the French-speaking area of Canada. So I don't know if that means he speaks French or not. But he started attending the collegiate level with Dalhousie in the 2020 to 21 season. He played 4 seasons with Dalhousie. Now, the first of those being the 2020 to 21 season. Obviously, that was the COVID year, so that technically did not count against his eligibility. So then he's a second-year freshman and continues on and plays his 4 seasons, 3 that count at Dalhousie. And then he uses his extra year to this past season play for, I don't know if it's Laurentian, which is a different school at the collegiate level. And so Canadian college basketball is very interesting. I think it's probably a little bit more widespread than like the US is, where like the worst teams in Canada probably are more equivalent to like NAIA Division III teams, Division II teams in college basketball, whereas the best teams in Canada are more equivalent to the better high majors. I don't know that they're as good as they are now, but like a couple of years ago, there was a school called Carleton College, and they used to play a lot of like, I remember there were stories about them beating Wisconsin and Ole Miss and some of these big, programs. I think they played a game against Duke. I can't remember if they won or not. But they were like a dominant force in Canada, and like they were beating some of these other teams. They had an interesting style, so it made it tough for summer exhibitions. But like some of the best teams are some of the best, but it's a wide range, right? You could be on a team that is more equivalent to being like a Division II school, right? So it becomes kind of interesting in terms of the level of play that you're at. And so you look at what he did. His first season, again, he's at Dalhousie, and that was the COVID season. So, again, doesn't count. I don't even think they played a season in Canada, unlike the U.S. So he's just there, and it doesn't count. So in the 2021 to 22 season, his, I guess, freshman season, you would say, with Dalhousie, really good season. They went 24-5. They went 12-2 in the league. They won their conference championship essentially, and he was on the all rookie team by putting together a season in which he averaged 11 points per game, 3.6 assists per game. He didn't have the best shooting percentages, but did produce at a decent level as a freshman there. Then in his second season at Dalhousie, they go 20-15, 12-8 in the league. They make it to the semifinals of the conference tournament, and that season his numbers really go up, 17.5 points per game for Engala. And I think he goes by, I don't know if it's Guy or G, is like the nickname he gets called, but 17.5 points per game as a sophomore in Canada, 4.3 rebounds per game. He does it shooting 46% from the floor, 40% from three, 92% at the foul line. So 46, 40, 92 on the shooting splits. Really impressive there. He had 58 assists compared to 44 turnovers. So not quite the assist to turnover you would like, but that is over 3 assists per game. He also averaged over 2 steals per game that season. Then his third season at Dalhousie. They go 26-14, 11-9 in the conference. Again, they win the conference and they end up making it all the way to the semifinals of the U Sports tournament, whatever you want to call it. So I guess that would be the equivalent of like the Final Four for them, because U Sports is what like the Canadian NCAA essentially is. And that season, in which again they win the conference championship and stuff, he puts up 15.1 points per game. The field goal percentages go down. He's down to 40% from the floor, 31% from three, 89 at the foul line. So continues to do that well. 4.3 rebounds per game. He gets closer to 2.5 assists per game, and he's averaging about a steal and a half per game. And I think he's had to deal with injuries throughout his career. Because you look at it and he played 14 games his first season, 18 games his second, 19 games his third. This past season, he played his most games. He played 22. He started all of them. And that was for Laurentian, who I mentioned, he transferred to. He not as good of a team, 16-14 overall, 11-11 in the league. He ends up scoring 15 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, on 40% from the field, 39% from three on very high volume. He took 153 threes in 22 games. So you're, looking at like 7 threes per game out of him at 39%. He also shot 76% at the foul line, though it was 20 less attempts than the year prior, and 69 assists compared to 53 turnovers. So again, some turnover issues there, but you're getting over 3 assists per game, and you're getting, over a steal per game. Overall, total it up for Engala. This is somebody who in Canada, which again, it's tough to tell, okay, what is the level of competition here? But clearly he's been on some winning teams. So I think it's probably safer to say that he's on the upper echelon of that. But 73 career games played over 4 seasons in Canada, with 1,080 career points scored at almost 15 points per game, career 85% free throw shooter, career 36% from 3-point range, with 117 steals in 73 games. So there's something, good player. He was named a first team all conference pick in the 22-23 season. He was named all tournament team in the 23-24 season. He was named a third team all conference pick in the 24-25 season, and was named the school's male athlete of the year. So again, you're talking about somebody who, produced at a very good level from where he was, right? He had a career high of 37 points in a game. He had a career high of 12 rebounds. He had a career high of 7 steals. He had a career high of 9 3-pointers made in a game. This guy can play. He also, though, played for Montreal Alliance, or I don't know if he tried out for him or what. That's like a professional team. So I don't know how the eligibility works here. Again, that's 5 years of college, essentially 4th at count without the COVID year, but it's in Canada. Would that be viewed the same way as, people who played 4 years at NAIA level, or, 4 years at the D2 level that are now transferring up to get 1 year, or the guys who went to JUCO to play that 1 year of NCAA basketball, right? Or is it different because you're an international player? I don't know. That probably is kind of the hurdle here of how KU would approach this. But if KU has interest, if they have interest, that probably tells you that they've at least poked at it to see if this is something that is kind of entirely possible. Now, when you look at the scouting report here for Engala, I think the stats tell you one thing. The stats tell you this is somebody who can shoot the 3 ball well. He's not going to be super efficient from 2-point range. Going to be a good free throw shooter, maybe a little too many turnovers. He's going to get you good steal numbers. And then the injury concern, I guess, would be the other one. And I don't know that for sure. I just, he's not playing in all the games. So it's, you're kind of assuming there. When you watch some of the highlights, when you watch some of the film on this kid, really good shiftiness, really good quickness. I would say really good straight line speed as well. Like when he gets out in transition, he's fast just in general. But even though he's fast, I think he's even more quick than he is fast. Like very good agility. Obviously he has to be because he's a below 6 foot guard, and he can just really create his own shot. He can really knock it down at a high level off the dribble. How that translates to a bigger level, how that translates against better and bigger and longer athletes, those are real questions. But, I think there have been some people calling him, and I forget if it was Mike Vernon who said this, somebody else said, the Canadian Coit. I think there's some credence there, right, to the idea that this guy's like a Diggy Coit coming from Canada. And so you don't know how it's going to translate over, but that's kind of the idea here. And like I said, it would be more Diggy Coit than anything. I will say this. If you watch some of the film, I'm not at all comparing him to the player. I'm not at all saying he's going to be like this player. There are sometimes where he takes a jump shot where I swear it's the same like shooting form, again, just the shooting form, that's all I'm talking about here, of Frank Mason. I don't know what it is. Like when people go under the screen and he does a pull-up or a pull-up mid-range, it looked eerily similar to Frank, which I thought was just kind of cool. Again, his game's not Frank. He wouldn't come in and be Frank. He'd be more in that Diggy Coit type of role for KU, but you got 2 scholarships open. So how exactly would he fit in with Kansas? We'll get to that next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. You might have a specific financial goal in mind. It might be for that next upcoming big trip. For me, it's, fixing the transmission on my car right now. And Monarch's going to help you get to that goal and make it easy to track and kind of keep an eye on what's going on. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. All right, thanks for joining us here on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget you make Locked On College Football or Locked On College Basketball your second listen every day. Okay, so how would Engala fit in with KU? So I think what he would add to the team would be more shot creation. He would add more shooting in general. He'd be a good three-point shooter. He would come in and be one of your best three-point shooters. He would be one of your better shot creators on the team. He would add more quickness to a team that I think has a good amount of quickness and athleticism, and he would certainly add even more of that. He would not add more positional size. Kansas has a lot of that throughout the roster. He wouldn't add that. He wouldn't add the wingspan, but is it okay to have somebody who's like that when the rest of the roster is? Absolutely it is for KU. I don't know what the level of defense is. I don't know. It's impossible to say on the highlights. Now, some of the stats, some of the steal numbers tell you that he's at least pesky there. We know that Diggy Coit was somebody who actually pressured the ball pretty well for KU, but he wasn't the best defender overall. And some of that was just specific limitations of, his height, where it's like, there's only so much you can do. This kid's a little taller, I think, than Diggy Coit. I think he's actually maybe even, I don't know. It's easy to say this when he's playing against Canadian competition that we don't know the level of play. He might be actually a little quicker though, and more athletic than Diggy Coit. So you could convince me he is, going to be a better defender than what you got from Diggy Coit, but I wouldn't necessarily put the billing that like I'm expecting him to be like, Marcus Garrett or something in the backcourt. Maybe he can just hold his own a little bit more there, right? And then just in general, like you don't know how the game's going to translate. You don't know how the efficiency is going to translate. Obviously, if he was somebody who was shooting, right, he has that 1 year where he plays really well for Dalhousie in really his biggest year, his sophomore season, where he does shoot in the mid 40s from the field. He shot 40 from three, but a lot of the other seasons, he's closer to 39, 40% from the field. Is that something where against better competition, maybe he could shoot 35% from three for KU, but would he only be shooting 40% on 2-point shots for KU? And then it's like, okay, what is the efficiency level here? But you could also make the argument, okay, if KU adds him, there's no guarantee he's going to even be part of the rotation. And if he is, it's probably specifically to come in and shoot threes and score from the outside for KU. So how much does that really matter, right? Like how much on ball is he going to get outside of, late in the shot clock, we need you to create a shot? Or is it going to be more so, hey, I'm running around a screen, I'm going to catch and I'm going to shoot? And then if that's the case, like maybe that stuff doesn't matter as much. And so that is where the possible role kind of comes into play, right? That Diggy Coit role, the guy who is kind of your 8th or 9th man, who is on the fringe of being a consistent Bill Self rotation player, who in a specific game, if he's hot, if he's feeling it from three, or the players ahead of him in the rotation aren't playing well, or Bill Self's annoyed that they did something or annoyed at the way they practice, you have this veteran, older player that can come in and maybe in that specific game play 25 minutes. But then there might be another game he does not play. Or maybe there might be another game where he plays 4 minutes, right? He comes in, starts 0 for 1 from three, misses a defensive assignment. You're on the bench for the rest of the game, right? That is a specific role that, KU might already have covered if the 8th man ends up being Samiz Calderon, maybe the 9th man is Cole Rosario, and maybe Rosario's in that role, right? But it doesn't hurt to have more options to do that, especially after you lost Noah Shelby. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe this would be a Noah Shelby replacement, somebody who can be kind of your 10th or 11th man, who it's like, if you really need a 3-point shot, maybe you just bring him in for a possession at the end of the half. At the very least, he's a practice player. He's a, good scout player for having a shooter out there. Like, and best case scenario, if it all comes together and it all hits, then it ends up being more than that, right? There's probably somewhere in between there that you would say, okay, it's somewhere between the Noah Shelby and the Diggy Coit role, depending on the level of outcomes of what he could possibly do. And if you're Ngala, like, it totally makes sense, right? You probably are going to go, make more NIL money, even if you're the 10th, 11th man at Kansas, than you would, I don't know, playing professionally in Canada on like a rookie contract. I don't know that for sure, but like, I feel like that would kind of be the case, right? So is this a take or not? I kind of said this on yesterday's episode. Thank you, Everydayers, if you already caught that, with Lucas Skorich. Was like, at this point, you have 2 scholarships open. There isn't really an alternative to like, oh, well, I don't know if they should take this kid because they should take this guy instead. You're kind of at just a point now where it's just like, okay, anybody you add most likely is going to have to fight just to even be in the rotation. So it's like, if you can find somebody with like one specific good skill set, or that can just do something good for your team and happens to be cheap enough that they fit into the budget of this current roster, they're not going to cause you to move around your NIL. They're not going to cause you to, have NIL headaches. They're going to be a good teammate. They're going to, fit a specific role, even if it's a smaller role for your team. I'm not going to say no to that guy, right? So this would definitely be a take for me in that sense, right? But I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be like, oh, they got this kid and now you're still going to have Elmarko Jackson and Melvin Council and Jaden Dawson and Darryn Peterson. That's 4 guards on its own who are going to be handling the ball, who are going to be in it the 1, 2, and 3, who are going to be playing a lot of minutes for KU. So like, there's no guarantee there's going to be a big amount of minutes for a guy like Ngala, but I do like the idea there. I do like the idea that you're getting creative, right? Trying to find somebody who can have talent and I do think is probably a better athlete than maybe you will get credit for coming in, and can be a good 3-point shooter. And at the very least, like, if that helps you in practice, and at the best case scenario, if it's Diggy Coit, where there's a couple games we point back to in the same way we did with Diggy Coit, where there was, maybe a game here or there where it's like, yeah, Diggy Coit was awesome that game. Diggy Coit helped win them that game. That I think would be a success. In addition, if you did get an addition this late in the game and, sitting on 2 open scholarships at this point in time. But also, I think, as it pertains to both Skorich and Ngala, if Kansas doesn't get either one and they just go into the season with 12 scholarship players, I think that's fine too. But obviously, if you have the 2 spots open and you can make it work financially, why not? All right, let's finish up. Latest news, KU football stadium, KU baseball news, KU women's basketball news. We'll get to all that next. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Again, don't forget to make Locked On College Football your second listen every day. So some KU baseball news, both a subtraction and an addition to the team. Let's start with the bad news so we can end on a high note. Cooper Moore, but this one we kind of already knew. Cooper Moore had entered the portal, and there was talk that, okay, depending if he gets drafted or where he wants to get drafted, he could either, go to a new school and enter the portal or go to the MLB draft. Well, turns out he winds up transferring, so not doing the draft route. I don't know if he got drafted or not. I'm assuming not if he did this, or maybe it was just later than he wanted to. But he goes to LSU, which is, they're the back-to-back national champions. So you can understand that he probably got a good payday to go there. So that'll be interesting, him being at LSU. He leaves Kansas. The good news for KU, though, is this. KU gets commitment from Daniel Lopez, who is a high school player who had 81 strikeouts in 49 innings at the high school level. He was drafted in the 12th round by the Baltimore Orioles. And that actually means that he's probably a better player than where he was drafted. Usually how it works with the high school kids, if you're not drafted in the first, 3 rounds or something, a lot of times you're going to go later in the draft unless teams have an overslot deal prepared for you, because basically how it works, especially now with teams being able to pay and NIL and stuff, is that, okay, it's kind of a risk for an MLB team to take a high school kid, I guess is the better way of putting it, because they could take him and the kid could decide to go to college, and then you don't end up with that draft pick. So that's why, unless you're one of those guys who it's oh, this high school kid is going to be a first round pick, of course he's going to sign. He's going to make multi-million dollars to sign with that team. Of course he's going to, sign with that franchise as opposed to going to college. Once you get to a certain point where it's like, if I'm going to be a 7th round draft pick as a high schooler, you might just be like, at that point, I'll go to college, right? I'll have the fun college experience. I can try to boost my draft stock. Now I can get paid in college. And so if you're really like a 6th or 7th round talent as a high school player, that might cause you to drop to the 12th round, where a team is like, okay, if we lose out on not signing our 12th round pick, like that's fine. If we lose out on not signing our 6th round pick, like that might be kind of a problem for us. So you probably have an even better talent here. And the fact that he picks KU, that kind of helps fill things in a real way, where yes, KU is losing Cooper Moore. Sounds like Dominic Vagley's going to be back. I think overall, like KU might not have, we'll see if somebody else, breaks out or develops into being that KU can kind of have their co-aces again. But it might just end up being that KU has their ace with Vagley, and hopefully he has more of the consistent season he had as a freshman, as opposed to this past season where there were those highlight moments, but there were also some lows. But I think it's going to be more depth on the pitching staff overall, both in the bullpen and the starting pitch. I think there's going to be more depth overall for KU, and we'll see if somebody can emerge as that Cooper Moore, other co-ace kind of replacement for KU. The KU football field, they're laying down the grass, which is kind of cool to see. I saw they were like laying down, and it looks like on the center, the Jayhawk doesn't have the head, which I don't know why. I mean, obviously there's going to be head. They're just going to, for Halloween, they're going to leave it till Halloween. It'll be the Headless Horseman Jayhawk, the special Halloween edition. But no, I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's because, are they like, is the body permanent and they're going to change out the head? Like some games it'll be the regular Jayhawk, which I know they announced that'll be the main one. But then some games it will be the Warhawk. Some games it'll be something else where that part will be painted on and the body will be permanent. I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. But I think the cool part that everybody's drawn to is the end zone. They released I don't know what to call it, like mock sketch or whatever it was when they announced what Jayhawk logo was going to be on the field, and you saw the wheat in the end zones. I think it looks even cooler, like the actual picture, than the graphic. I don't think the graphic did it enough justice. Like people noticed it and they're like, oh, okay, that's kind of a subtle, cool thing. The actual paint of it looks really cool, especially with the blue and the wheat. That's going to look awesome in the end zone. Also was cool, and I think Travis Goff pointed this out on Twitter, that like you could see how close the end zone seats were to the end zone, and kind of getting that close knit experience for the football field. I think is going to be really cool. And I'm just getting even more excited and more geeked up for the start of the football season, and being there for the Fresno State game and kind of seeing, the stadium for the first time in person during a game, right? The last piece of news here is the KU women's basketball non-conference schedule is out. So this will be an interesting season for them, because obviously this will be the 3rd season for Samaya Nichols, who was really good as a freshman, got even better last year. KU and her both had to deal with some injury stuff, but now they've got some other good freshman teammates joining her. Keely Parks comes in. Libby Fandel comes in. Like, these are highly recruited freshmen that they're adding to the team. And then you have some other kind of contributing role players that are back in the fold. They added a transfer center this offseason. I don't know if the roster is complete yet. We'll see for KU, but it'll be an interesting season for Brandon Schneider and company. And so it'll be Fort Hays State exhibition, Kansas City, then Northwestern State, Lamar. Those are games to kind of get them eased in. The first big one is the Missouri game. They're going to be playing at the T-Mobile Center on a Saturday, November 15th. So that should be pretty cool to see that game at the T-Mobile Center. Then they'll get Minnesota and Allen Fieldhouse. They got Oral Roberts. They'll have the Fort Myers tip-off, Northwestern, Missouri State, Denver. And then I guess Haskell is not an exhibition game. So that's kind of interesting that one got on there. But yeah, man, they're going to need those freshmen with Keely Parks and Libby Fandel and Tatiana Brown to be contributors on this team. And they're going to need Samaya Nichols to continue her ascent. She's been awesome so far. Going to keep needing to be on that trajectory. I think a good season for KU women's basketball this year would be contending, if not making, the NCAA tournament this year. And then for the following season, you would at that point have some of these really good high school recruits that you brought in this year who are freshmen. They'd be sophomores. Samaya Nichols would be a senior. And that year you'd kind of be hoping for, okay, can we be like a top 25 team? At least that's how I view it. All right. That'll do it, though, for this episode of the show. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show. We'll see you next time for another edition of Locked On Jayhawks.